You're listening to The White Rabbit, conversations on the art of presenting in a rather noisy world. Your hosts are Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. Matt helps leaders of international companies speak, write, and present with confidence. Alper is a communications trainer and a startup investor with a diverse portfolio of companies in Barcelona. If you like this podcast, please share it with friends and colleagues. Now, on to Matt and Alper for today's conversation. Matt, in this podcast, you and I have talked a number of times about the importance of focusing on a niche market and serving it and gaining experience and, being able to put a better service with each client that you serve. And lately, you and I talked about, outside the podcast, about the counter view that you had brought up. And it reminded me how, I think if my history is correct, Einstein also had counter views against Newton's, right? And he was initially ridiculed for that. So,
wait, I'm flattered, but are you comparing me to Einstein?
Yes.
well, I'm flattered, but I don't know if I aspire to that.
Maybe not to him exactly per se, but to some of his points of views that he took up against the establishment.
Okay.
So I want to ask you, what did you mean by that? I believe the phrase that you had used was
all grip on niching.
All grip on niching. Yeah. Tell me what you meant by that.
I'll tell you what I meant by that. I've got some favorite clients, and they are far and away, by orders of magnitude, favorite client.
Mm-hmm.
They are, a couple years later, they are the clients that I will remember that I enjoyed working with the most. And the reason that I enjoy working with them the most is that clients who are clearly in my niche and who stay there are very good for increasing operational efficiency, increasing operational effectiveness, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The things that you need to improve your craft and your niche. So that's great. I have nothing against that. But then there's this other brand of clients. And for me personally, they've historically have made up about 20% of my client base. And they are clients who maybe initially come to me because they have an issue that they're in the niche that they're working on. And by the way, my niche is basically presentation skills for people who work in international companies. So about 20% of my client base, they'll come to me because that's the initial triggering issue that they are working on. But then our work evolves into something else, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what they came to me for. But far and away, those clients will be the ones that I enjoy working with the most. And for a while, it's been a mental problem for me, because almost invariably, I'll be crystal clear for a very short time about why they are there. Maybe they'll say something, and every one of them will have a different reason, a different inner existential reason that's keeping them around, basically.
Okay.
They'll all have a different reason, but they'll all have a reason. And at some point, they'll mention that reason to me. And for a few moments, for a few days, I'll be crystal clear in my understanding about why they're there. But then within a couple days, or maybe within a week, I've forgotten about that. I can't remember anymore. It's as crystal clear as I used to be on it. I'm not crystal clear anymore. And I'm back to thinking the same question that I was thinking a week ago, which is basically, why are they here? And so I asked myself, why does this happen? Why do you have these clients who you like working with so much, and then you have this clarity about why they're here? Why doesn't it stick around? Why does it go away? What's going on here? And so I walked around with that question for a while. And I came up with this phrase, maybe I'm all grip on niching. And what I mean by that, all grip on niching, the phrase, or the movie Free Solo with Alex Honnold. Are you familiar with that movie?
No, I'm not.
So Alex Honnold, he's a rock climber, and he's climbing some face in Yosemite or something like that in this movie. He's going to free solo, I think it's El Capitan, some face in Yosemite. Anyway, so it's like a death-defying activity. And so these doctors, they're like, let's scan this guy's brain in an MRI and see what's going on in there, because apparently this guy is undertaking activities that even crazy people think are crazy. So he's so far beyond crazy that we can't even understand what's going on. So let's put him in an MRI and see if there's anything going on in there. So that's what they do. They put
there must be something wrong.
Yes, they figure there must be something wrong. And so that's what they do. They put him in an MRI and they scan his brain. And so then he's having this phone call in the movie. He's having this phone call with the doctor who's explaining the test results. And the doctor, is looking at the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for fear. And the doctor says, your amygdala, it's working. There is a fear response. It's just that it takes way more than average to make it work than it does for normal people. And his Alex Honnold's response to that is, well, maybe it's because my amygdala is all grip. And what he means by that all grip is that maybe my amygdala has been working so hard for so many years on suppressing this fear response that it can't operate normally anymore. And so that's what I mean by this phrase, all grip on niching, is that maybe we as solopreneurs, so much of the solopreneur literature is telling us that we absolutely need to specialize in what we do. And, I'm just to be clear, I'm a big fan of that. I think it's a great argument. I don't think that you'll last more than 2 years if you don't create a niche for yourself. So I'm not arguing against that at all, but I'm suspecting that maybe the fact that so much of the literature is telling us to niche down, specialize. Maybe so much of the literature is telling us to do that we lose the message. We can't hear the message anymore that 20% of our customers are giving us, which is that for whatever reason, we are helping them fulfill a deep existential need that they have. And it has very little to do with the niche that we've selected or the work that we do, but for some reason, we help them fulfill that existential need. And if you can fulfill, if you have some person in your life who helps you fulfill some deep existential need that you have, that person is going to be priceless to you. I think in terms of examples of what I'm talking about, I think of a wall painter. Like, let's say that I've got a wall and the wall is currently painted blue or something, and I want that wall painted white. So I call in a wall painter, and the wall painter, he's done this a million times. He comes in here and he paints the wall white. And so the initiating factor was that I needed the wall to be white, and he's done his job. The wall is now white. That's great. And he's very professional. He did a great job on that. But for some reason that none of us can explain, that wall painter, maybe in our conversation or the way he paints the wall or God knows what, for some reason, that wall painter is helping me answer this deeper existential need that I have about this other thing that I would never have expected that I would talk to him about. But for some reason, he's helping me with that. That wall painter is going to become one of the most valuable people in my life.
Okay, just to make sure that I understand you clearly, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
In the case of the wall painter, are you talking about the scenario where you may need his different services, but if you were so focused only on the niche that he would be in two Bob's terms, or the win without pitching terms, he would be leaving money on the table if he just stuck with his niche and didn't work with you in other areas? Is that the kind of thing that you're talking about?
It kind of is. The wall painter needs to be a wall painter. I'm not saying that the wall painter should one day wake up and decide to start marketing himself as a life coach. The wall painter needs to be a wall painter. The wall painter is going to need to continue painting walls. The wall painter is probably going to continue painting walls for years or decades into the future. So the wall painter needs to be a wall painter, but the wall painter needs to also be aware that for whatever reason, and it's, as far as I can tell so far, random and unpredictable. For some reason, some of the people who call in that wall painter, something about that wall painter, the way he paints a wall, the way he moves with his brush, the conversations that they have, whatever. Some of the things that the wall painter does for a certain segment of that wall painter's customer base, that wall painter is going to help them sort through a deeper existential need that nobody expected a wall painter to help them with. That's what I mean by that.
Okay, I understand more clearly now. And we are coming to the end of the podcast, but before wrapping things up, I would like to ask, can you give like a more relevant example from our own industry, for example?
Sure. Let's say, for example, you are a British slide designer in Thailand, and you think that a customer is coming to you because of your awesome slide design skills. But maybe that customer is actually coming to you because she is inspired by the way you moved to Thailand. and are working remotely from there.
Okay.
And she's just buying your slide design services because that's what you sell, and you're doing great work. She really likes the slides that you design, but there are a lot of people who could do that slide design for. And so the need for slide design and your ability to supply slide design is not actually why she's there. So I just wanted to, in this realm of you need to niche down. Again, let me stress that I'm totally bought into that. I think it's a great argument. I don't think that somebody would last more than a couple years if they didn't do it. But my suggestion is don't overestimate the specialness of the service that you provide, because some of your favorite clients, and in my case, I noticed that it's pretty high. It's been about 20%. Some of your clients might not actually be with you because of that particular service that you provide. Maybe that was why they initially came to you, but after a few months, they kind of moved on and they realized I'm getting something much more out of this.
Okay. So it's not like you're going too much against the establishment, like I mentioned in the beginning. I get that now. And before we finish, I'd like to ask, is there a recommendation or actionable items that you suggest to use this information in a way that would increase our business or productivity or something?
There's no tangible action point that I could give. And if there was, maybe I would be like a business guru and I'd be flying around on a Learjet or something like that. So there's no tangible action point that I can give. What I can mention is that in this process of becoming all grip on niching, which again, I think is quite necessary. In this process of becoming all grip on niching, don't completely lose your human side and forget that maybe some of your clients, as many as 20% of them, don't forget that some of your clients might actually be with you for some reason that has absolutely nothing to do with the niche that you are imagining that you are doing.
Okay. So I think it would be safe to classify this episode as one of those therapeutical sessions where we just empty ourselves. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Yes, that would be a fair way to describe it.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Alper.
Thank you. I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to The White Rabbit with Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. You can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or through your favorite feed.